Hello and welcome to Creating Hope in Our Community, Healthy and Happy in Camglen Radio's campaign for promoting good well-being and ultimately suicide prevention. Today I'm speaking with Ellie Bather from St Andrew's First Aid. Ellie is going to be speaking to me about children's mental health, the mental health first aid course and the mental health of carers. Ellie, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Matt.
Lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. So we're going to be covering a few different things today, really sort of your work with St Andrew's First Aid, but also the children's mental health. That's an angle we've not really had much time with on the podcast, as well as carers' mental health as well. So To kind of kick things off then, can you tell us a bit about St Andrew's First Aid and your role within that?
Yeah, of course. So St Andrew's First Aid are the leading first aid training provider in Scotland. And we're kind of split between commercial training for workplaces and then the team that I work on, which is the community charity side of things. So we offer funded courses for young people at the moment through our Ready for Life programme. And we also, across the whole of St Andrews, have loads and loads of volunteers who do a variety of different things, from events as first aid cover across like football matches and concerts and stuff across Scotland, and then the community education side of things. So they go out and deliver kind of bite-sized first aid talks and demonstrations across the whole of the country.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, those bite-sized training courses are something we're quite interested in as well. So I'll speak to you about that after this. But I kind of want to, I suppose, to start off with, to focus on the mental health first aid course. Now, that's a course we've been doing for a while as well, but I'd like to get your insight as to why you think it's so important. So
the mental health first aid course that we deliver as part of our Ready for Life programme with the young people builds their kind of understanding and education around, from the very basics, what is mental health, what does it mean to you, what does it mean in the kind of wider community, and The most important part for me is that it builds on their understanding of signs and symptoms to look out for in people, whether that be their friends and family, strangers in the community, in a future workplace, and in themselves. That way they can identify when they need to kind of push for a conversation to be had with that person. And a big segment of the course is around stigma, and building on our understanding of what the stigma is around mental health conditions and mental health struggles, and how we can begin to reduce that in society and work with it. So we do loads of kind of awareness raising around that, and they get to, there's like a couple of activities we do where they write down loads of different stigmas that they might have come across around mental health problems, and they don't hold back. They really get them all down there, and it's kind of like a bit of a nervous laugh in the beginning because people are thinking, how can I write this down in school? But it's bridging a gap, I think, between having support on the ground for people who are, experiencing something early on when it comes to a mental health problem or difficulty, up until the point they reach crisis. Having something early on to help prevent the number of people reach crisis, just from this one day course that these kids do. That's really important to me, and I'm really passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I can tell. And something that sometimes comes to mind for me is particularly when you're thinking about young people and how much things have changed over the last, say, 20 years. I mean, I remember being in fifth year and, not even having the vocabulary to express some of these things. But, with your help, these young people are now able to express those things, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to, hear you say that, because I definitely do see, or when I go in, I'm always pretty pleasantly surprised by kind of like the understanding and language and like acceptance from the young people. But there is still, you still go in and, you ask them that first question, like, what does mental health mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to be struggling? And the question I always ask at the very beginning is who has mental health? And they quite often you'll get answers, people who are depressed, people who are sad, people who can't do the things other people can do. And the answer is everyone has it all the time. It's like physical health. One day you wake up and you've got a cold or a sore back. The next day you're fine. Mental health is exactly the same. So it's, although there's definitely progress in how like kind of our young people are know about it and the awareness around it, there's still work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that, maybe their parents will still be holding those, not in a negative way necessarily, but still holding maybe older views that maybe we don't harbour so much anymore.
A big part of the conversation around that stigma that I was talking about. A lot of them are really open, and it's amazing because they'll say, oh, my dad says, or even my mum's not the greatest person to talk to, or my granddad said that before about it not being a boy's problem, it's only a girl's problem. And it's those comments are so good for the conversation because it just highlights what it is we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what mental health first aid skills do you think everyone should have?
I think recognising the signs and symptoms is key. You need to know what it means to be suffering. And that's not even just for, highlighting people around you who might be struggling. It's for yourself as well. A big one is about risk assessment, and it's something I do at the very start of all courses is say, look, everything in this space is confidential, as it should be within conversations you have with people when you're helping them support their mental health. But there is a time and a place where further input is needed, and if I think there's a risk to harm to yourself or to anyone else, then I have to share it. Like, I've got protection procedures, and it's encouraging them to do the same. And anyone who's taken on a kind of mental health first aid, whether it be a qualification or just a wee talk in the community, when is it appropriate to get someone else involved, and knowing that boundary. And the point is, at any stage, the emergency services are there to do that. If you think somebody is at risk of suicide or have harmed themselves in a way that you're worried about their safety, then you call 999. So that's one of the biggest skills, is just being able to identify that.
Yeah, if nothing else, you can still do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to focus then on children's mental health, like I was saying, you're responsible for delivering, mental health training at secondary school pupils. So, I mean, you've kind of said this already in some ways, but how do the pupils take it on board? Are they generally quite up for having these conversations, or?
So I generally have a really good reception when I go into schools. I've been all across Scotland, and so is my colleague who does the same job. It's a group of 12 normally, kind of between 8 and 12. And we do the mental health first aid course on day 2 of the programme. So we've had that kind of time to get a little bit more comfortable. They generally know each other. They're from the same year group, or they're pals, or, they know of each other. But getting to know me and kind of what I will and won't accept in the space, and how relaxed I want to make the space, which, to be honest, is pretty relaxed from the get-go. So that certainly helps. And then, because we've spent like kind of that previous day together, they're a bit more open to discussing things. And as much as it can be difficult to hear somebody disclose something, it can be really beneficial for the way the course runs and allow the other kids to learn from it. But generally it's action-packed. We keep it as light as we can. Even talking about things like suicide and self-harm, I say this is going to be a ride. Like, we need to talk about this, but let's have as much fun with this as we can, and have serious conversations where it's appropriate. So there's games, we do trust exercises, lots of kind of practical practicing skills, loads of discussion, stuff like that.
Good. Okay. And yeah, it sounds like you're doing it in a way that's probably quite fun for them as well. And I guess that goes a long way to normalising these conversations and having it not be a big deal to talk about mental health. So there have been numerous campaigns over the years to reduce stigmas surrounding mental health and encouraging open dialogue about mental health and I guess just having conversations about these things. Do you notice a difference in how younger generations think and talk about mental health compared to previous generations? Yeah,
I really do. I think the biggest learning from me since starting delivering the course with young people is during that conversation around stigma is that they are far more open and honest and willing to discuss. But with that comes this kind of like perspective from people from that older generation who might not be as informed or caught up as they are, that they're the snowflake generation, or they're too sensitive, or it's just hormones. And that is a really interesting kind of angle to talk about it from with them, because I really try and have that conversation in depth about, how bad is it to be, like, what does it mean to be an attention seeker or a snowflake? Does it mean negative? Has it got negative connotations, or is it that this conversation is becoming more open, less taboo? We're happy to discuss it. We're happy to open up about our feelings. So it's definitely there, like the willingness to discuss and learn about it. And the feedback and the evaluations we get as well are quite often the telltale signs of, I didn't know anything about this, but it's been really nice to have a space to talk about it and understand.
I can imagine for some kids it might even be like the start of something.
Yeah.
Where because I remember when I did the mental health first aid course about 7 years ago, and I would like to have thought that I was quite a nice person before, but it really changed my outlook on a lot of things. And, I realised that I could have been a lot more empathetic, and, just having that, even just a surface level knowledge about some of the things you would have covered off, then I wonder if it's just set them on a path to something really good.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are surprised when I say, you don't have to know it all to be able to do this. Like, say to the person you're helping, I don't know what to say right now. Let's find out together. Or let's, I don't know very much about what you're experiencing, but I'd really like to learn with you and help you in whatever way I can. How can I help you? You don't have to have all the answers and know where to go straight away. And that, I think, gives them a bit of a breathing, a moment to breathe and think, okay, I'm not learning something here that I'm actually never going to put into practice because it's too big and scary. It's not big and scary. It can be as kind of relaxed and calm as it needs to be, unless you're at a crisis point and quicker, more emergency style intervention needs to be put into place.
Yeah, of course. And I guess, when you're in the moment having a conversation for real of this nature, it having that confidence and that ability to say, right, well, I know that by asking if they're feeling suicidal, I'm not going to be putting ideas into their head by asking that. And, I'm sure if you look back on a situation where you had to have this conversation, you might think, well, I should have done this, I should have said this, but really doing something is better than nothing.
Yeah. A lot of the time, that's what we're really trying to stress is you might be the only person they've ever opened up to, or you might be the person who's asked them 3 times across the last month, and that's 3 times more than anyone else has. And that's often enough. And if it's not enough, then, you keep going. We play a wee video and it's about taking the time to break through, because a lot of these conversations, the video's great. It's by STV, I believe. And it's difference between what's coming out of your mouth and what you're thinking, and how you can have the best of intentions, but it just doesn't quite come across the way you want it to because it's difficult. But time after time after time, people will slowly begin to realise, they genuinely care because they keep asking. And that's quite easy, to just keep asking somebody how they are. It doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, I guess, sometimes there's a fear of, what if I ask them if they're feeling suicidal and they say yes, and what am I going to do then? Or, am I going to react the right way if they tell me something that I wasn't ready to hear? But even just, like you say, being there and showing an interest goes a long way, doesn't it? Yeah.
And that question about, are you feeling suicidal, it is the only way to go about it. If that's what you think is happening, you have to ask. I mean, one of the most important things to take away from the conversations we have is that if you think someone's thinking about suicide, you must ask. Mm-hmm. It can't go unsaid. I think you'd mentioned that fear of, but what if I put it into their head, or what if they weren't thinking about that and now they are? It's never the case. Rarely the case. If someone is thinking about suicide, it's very clear. Yeah, it's all encompassing. And asking that really unambiguous question, are you thinking about suicide? It gets out onto the table super quickly and super clear, and then you both know what you're talking about. And to be honest, I don't know many people who would hear that and not start scrambling and worrying and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to respond to this? And that's okay. But at that moment in time, it's assessing what you need. And if you've had further training, like there's a course called the ASSIST course, which is Applied Suicide Intervention Training, and it is absolutely brilliant.
It's a fantastic course.
Yeah, it's 2 days. It's very intense. If you've done that, great. You're looking to put a safety plan in place to keep them safe for now. If you've not done that, you're staying with them as best as you can, and you're calling 999 if you think they've got suicidal ideation and a plan to attempt suicide. Then it's a 999 call. Like you say, doing something is better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to that, I suppose that fear of asking the question, and what if they say yes, or what if I just embarrass them a little bit and they say no? I don't know how you could say something like that. Well, isn't that better?
Yeah.
Than having feelings going unchecked.
Those conversations about, are you feeling suicidal? And you were saying there, what if it makes somebody feel silly? Like, why would you say that? The conversations I have within the classroom are that, call people out on it, practice this. If you think someone's thinking about suicide, ask them about it. So if your pal says something, as people do nowadays, very often it's used as a kind of phrase to reflect something that was a bit difficult, or I didn't like I can't make it out to that event, or I'm going to miss out on that, or I'm late for work, I'm just going to kill myself. Yeah, call them out. Challenge them on that. And maybe a bit of embarrassment is good. Yeah, because that kind of dulling down of the severity and using that phrase in everyday language where it's not appropriate is taken away from the times when it is absolutely like a red flag, a risk, and we need to act on it really seriously. So yeah, it's just about asking about it appropriately, and knowing when it's serious and when it's not.
Yeah.
And you can only do that by asking. I
think you've made a really good point about calling it out when someone's talked about it in a maybe not an appropriate way. Thinking back a few years, it was probably not long after I did my course, I was picking up a few shifts at a pizza delivery place over in Battlefield, and there was a girl there who was like, I was working 11 hours yesterday, I'm gonna end it all. And I was like, are you okay? And she got quite embarrassed. She was like, no, I'm just saying that, but maybe there's something to be said about people being flippant about that kind of thing. I suppose in the same sort of way as how people who like things tidied a certain way, will tidied up a certain way, will say, I'm so OCD about the way I like my... Yes. But that's not what OCD is.
100%. There was a campaign a while ago that I really got on board with about OCD not being an adjective. It's exactly like that. Yeah, it's a clinical diagnosis when somebody is really struggling, and not just about tidying up and keeping things clean. So yeah, it's like the flippancy of it all. Yeah, calling that out and
challenging it. And these things can be like debilitating, really horrible conditions or really horrible situations to find yourself in.
I think also, sorry to interrupt you. That being said, though, sometimes it's worth remembering that people can joke about things as a way of kind of calling out. So being aware that a joke might seem like a joke and a total flippant comment, but maybe there is something there as well. So kind of coming at it from both aspects. Don't challenge and, tell them off. Explore it. Yeah, find out quickly. I'm sure you will, whether it's serious or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose what's the phrase? Ne'er a truer word said in jest, So yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so what challenges or unique challenges do young people face to their mental health, especially these days?
I think just going back to what we said when, like I mentioned during the topic of those stigmas, it's about young people being told they're too inexperienced, they're too young, they're, what have you got to be stressed about or anxious about? These are the best days of your life. It's minimising what they might be experiencing and putting those boundaries up so quickly, and they are so robust at that age to kind of, because there's loads going on. You're struggling to get through lots of different elements of life, and I think being, if you say a lot of the kids are kind of saying, oh, but people think you're an attention seeker, people think you're not sick enough, or people have got it far worse than you. what if it does develop? What if it becomes worse? Yeah, it's about learning to deal with that in the moment for what it is, and giving people the space to feel how they feel. It doesn't really matter their age, stage, religion, culture, wherever they are, gender, big one still, even though we're all so aware of it. There's so many campaigns around it.
Yeah, earlier on you used the analogy of comparing mental health to physical health, and you're talking as well about how it doesn't matter if you're not feeling the worst. You've not got the worst mental health in the world. You should still take notice. In the same way that if you had a cold, obviously that's not the same as having something like COPD, but you should still get a bit of rest and take it easy for a couple of days until it passes. And you should still do that with your mental health. Yeah, really.
It's like you still take note of it, don't you? And like you look after yourself in a certain way. You might take time off from the gym or exercise. And one thing as well about like linking it to physical health is that people can recognise, like you say, when they're just not feeling great. Okay, it doesn't mean they've been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder, but they're not feeling great, and practicing what they're preaching as mental health first aiders, whether that be in school, they quite often have like mental health champions or ambassadors, or a mental health first aider in the workplace. Realising that that's the case and practicing what you preach to look after your own health and well-being, and not, continuing that stigma of, well, I'm not bad enough. People have it worse than I do, so I'll just get on with it. Or like, it's just this. Yeah, use the tools. Act on the things around you that you've got to support you, because it just helps to squash those stigmas and barriers as much as possible.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, even if you've not got the worst mental health in the world, take note and take some time out or do something that you really enjoy, and then that's what you do with a cold, for example. Yep. So yeah, great. Okay, sort of the last question of the children's mental health part of the interview. So what would you say to parents who are concerned about the mental health of their children?
I think it's just to listen and keep listening. You might not get anywhere for a while, but I mean, I'm not a parent, but gut instinct, I'm sure, goes a long way. And it's taking that time to break through, frequent conversations, frequently asking, giving them the space. We'll show them that there's an opportunity here to open up. And I think there's something to be said in not being a fixer or a problem solver, which I'm sure is what a lot of parents are desperate to do. They want to take away whatever it is that's causing the issue. But a lot of the time, there's no one thing that's causing the issue, or it can't be removed. It might be school, it might be friend group. It's something that people are struggling through, and you just need to hear it from their perspective. A really good tool is reflecting back, so summarising back what they've said in the words you've heard it in, or paraphrasing it. That gives the person that you're trying to support the opportunity to hear, they've really understood what I've said, they've got it, and then they can also correct you on it and say, actually, no, that's not really the point I was trying to make, and it gives you a bit of reflection time to think, right, where are we going next? What am I going to say? Or yeah, so it's just it's frequency of conversations and keeping it as open as possible,
and being patient, and it's hard not to be a fixer for any mental health first aid thing. It's hard not to be like, you should do this, you should do that, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work like that.
It's another like big question I ask in the course is like, who's ever had unsolicited advice? And they all put their hand up because naturally they're at school and they get it fairly regularly, and it doesn't feel great when all you want is a shoulder to cry on. Yeah, it's like you just want that open. Do you know what? That's crap. I'm really feeling for you.
I'm sorry you're in that situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the mental health of carers then. So you told me that you're also a trainee cognitive behavioural therapist. You obviously sounds as if you're just not busy enough and you've added more things onto your to-do list. Supporting unpaid carers in the northwest of Glasgow. So what does that entail, and what sort of challenges do unpaid carers have?
Yeah, so I in June, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, going to qualify. I've been doing a diploma in cognitive behavioural therapy and group work. So part of that is I've been providing therapy at Quarriers Glasgow North West Carers Centre. So I see clients who are all unpaid carers. For a variety of different reasons, they're coming to me. They're unpaid carers, but they also have something that they're trying to work on. But themes kind of across their experiences is, you can't, being an unpaid carer takes a lot, if not all, of you. And it's that reminder and help and facilitation to protect a bit of time for themselves again. Naturally, there's a lot of kind of anxiety and self-blame, I think, involved in caring. If you can't do everything that needs to be done, or there's difficulties or issues, or it looks different for everybody, but working through the kind of guilt and self-blame and challenges that arise from that, they're superheroes. I actually don't know how some of them do it, the stuff they do, with all their own life going on in the background.
It must make it difficult as well to, if you give up so much of your time to, that's a pure choice of phrase, I think, but you spend so much of your time supporting whoever it is you're caring for, a family member or a spouse or something like that. It must then become very hard to have your own career aspirations, or maybe you can't even work at all if that's the boat you find yourself in. Yeah,
I think there's a great deal of conflict because, like you say, like giving up time is kind of a poor phrase, isn't it? Because quite often, I mean, the clients I work with, they're caring for parents, children, partners. So there's a great deal of love and like admiration, and all they want for that person is the best. But it doesn't. That doesn't mean it hasn't taken away an element of their life, and that conflict of I want the best for this person, so I'm going to provide it, but also what about me? And that's where that like guilt and self-blame I see a lot of, and it's about finding ways to manage that and implement tools and techniques and a bit of education and where that might come from and how we can implement small changes to break the mold a wee bit, or break the cycle of those thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. What risks to mental well-being are common for unpaid carers, and what can they do to protect their mental well-being despite all the support they provide to people?
I think stress, just day in, day out, has its long-term implications on anyone. So stress management techniques and tools is a huge focus of the work that we do. One of the biggest things that I experience with them is difficulties around anxiety and acceptance. Difficulties around anxiety and acceptance of what their life is now, what it might have been like before. So, it can pose challenges and make carers feel stuck or overwhelmed. And that has its own impact on their mental health and how they view the world, how they view themselves. It's a big part of CBT is finding the negative patterns in those kind of thinking styles and working to change them ever so slightly, which hopefully has a bigger impact, kind of thoughts, feelings, behaviours.
CBT can be such an effective thing as well. I did a wee bit a few years ago just to help out with some feelings that I'd been having at the time, and it really can help you sort of reframe everything and change your perspective in the world. So it must be really valuable to those carers to get your support. I
think you've hit the nail on the head. It's like reframing and breaking cycles that potentially have gone on years of the way you view yourself, the way you view others in the world, the way you view your future, and finding kind of the niggles, or we use the phrase negative automatic thoughts, and a person has up to kind of 90 to 100,000 thoughts a day, and they're involuntary. They fly in, they fly out, and they're kind of coded somewhere, in the way we feel about ourselves. So it's doing a bit of work on challenging the really negative ones that are causing our issues and working through that. And it's like any skill. Once you practice, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, the more natural it becomes, and all of a sudden you've kind of reframed, like you say.
It can become second nature after a certain point.
That's the hope, yeah.
Absolutely. I remember, because I used to, I'm going to start doing it again soon, but I used to deliver mental health first aid training as well. And as you know, there's a part quite early on in the course, well, depending on how you treat it, when you do this module, but there's a part in the course where you look at your frame of view or your perspective on the world and how that might have been shaped. And there's something, I think it was one of my colleagues that did the course, and she was like, how many decisions have I actually made for myself, that haven't actually come from, that those thought processes that have developed over years. It's quite interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's a massive perspective shift a lot of the time for people if they've never engaged in any kind of like therapy or even just self-reflection in general. And it can be a pretty big and scary sometimes epiphany for people to realise actually a lot of my life has been framed by like this viewpoint, and what can we do to improve and nurture you to make that viewpoint slightly more positive.
Can I ask this? So this is a question that isn't on the script, so I'm not trying to catch you out. But what was it that motivated you to become a cognitive behavioural therapist?
So I just actually still on the line of carers. I worked for a carer centre during the pandemic, exclusively with young carers, and because of the pandemic, we were all sent home. We used to do groups and lots of social stuff, and there was loads of stuff involved in it. And then all of a sudden, there wasn't. The kids weren't going to school. They were at home with their cared for person, usually a sibling or a parent or a grandparent, and things just became like very, very difficult, more difficult than I think I could have even anticipated for a lot of the young people I worked with. And I found myself really only able to offer mental health support, and at that time I didn't have any kind of background in it, just that I'm a good listener and I like to chat. So I, through that, then went on to do a certificate in counselling skills, which I'd recommend for anybody, teachers, hairdressers, like podcast hosts. It's amazing. It just kind of teaches you the bare bones of how to talk to somebody and how to get the most out of them. And
what was that called again? Counselling?
It's a certificate in counselling skills.
So
in Scotland, it's a COSCA accredited course. I did it over 6 months, and it's kind of a precursor. So for any postgraduate diploma that you would want to do, you would need your COSCA certificate in counselling skills. So I did that, and I thought, yeah, this is great. I like this. And then I took it a while out, and I thought, if I really like it in 3 years' time, I'll go back to it. And it's all I thought about. I did lots of other stuff, and I thought, I know I'm going to go in and do that. And CBT it's the gold standard, and I like the kind of framework it works for me. But there's loads of other modalities out there that I'm also interested in. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we're coming up to really the last question. So what would you say to any unpaid carers listening in and maybe struggling with their mental health?
Carer centres are amazing. They are all across Scotland. You can go on the Care Information Scotland website, and they've got a list of like all the local ones available, and you can access them through your GP as well. They should be able to refer you on, but I'm pretty sure all carer centres are self-referable as well. And they provide a whole host of services. It's not just counselling and therapy. In fact, I think only a handful offer that in-house, but they will be able to kind of signpost you on. There's things like financial support for benefits, support groups, peer support groups, social stuff, short break services, so accessing bits of money to be able to put somebody into respite if that's what you need, or having paid carer services come into the house so that you can go out and do something.
Lovely. Okay, great. Now, where can people find out more about the work you do at St Andrew's First Aid?
Yeah, so everything we do, whether it's the community side of things with my team or anything else we cover, events, volunteering opportunities, training, is all at firstaid.org.uk. You'll see it all on there, and you can also contact any of the departments. You'll get some numbers on there as well.
Lovely. Awesome. Ellie, thank you so much for your time. I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much for having me.